On Father's Day, my daughter Olivia gave me a pair of socks for $15, smiling as if it were a treasure. The same day, I saw a $10,000 Rolex watch on her father-in-law's hand, bought with my money, which she called a vital expense. After that, she called me 17 times, begging, "Daddy, don't do this." But it was too late, I was already on a path that had no room for regret. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you are listening in the comments. The sun poured through the living room windows, painting golden streaks across the worn-out couch where I sat, waiting for Olivia. My daughter had promised a Father's Day surprise, and despite the years of quiet disappointments, a flicker of hope stirred in me. The old clock on the mantel ticked relentlessly, each second a reminder of the time I'd poured into her, 20 years since her mother's death, every sacrifice etched into my bones. The room smelled faintly of lemon polish, a habit I'd kept from my late wife, though the family photos on the shelf were the real anchor here, Olivia as a gap-toothed kid, me beaming beside her at her graduation, us together, always us. The doorbell chimed, and my heart lifted. I opened the door to find Olivia, her auburn hair swept into a sleek bun, her designer coat too crisp for our modest Chicago suburb. She held a small gift bag, the tissue paper crumpled like an afterthought. Her husband, Liam, loomed behind her, his smirk as polished as his loafers. "Happy Father's Day, Daddy," Olivia said, her voice sweet but edged with something sharp, like a blade wrapped in silk. She thrust the bag into my hands, her smile tight, as if she were posing for a photo she didn't want to take. I forced a grin, my fingers brushing the rough tissue. "Thanks, sweetheart." The bag felt light, insubstantial. I sat back on the couch, aware of their eyes on me, Olivia's expectant, Liam's faintly amused. The clock ticked louder, or maybe it was just my pulse. I pulled out a pair of navy socks, the kind you'd find in a discount bin for $15. The price tag was still attached, dangling like a taunt. My chest tightened, but I kept my face neutral. "Socks," I said, holding them up. "Practical. Always dreamed of these." Olivia's laugh was high, brittle. "Exactly. Something useful, right? Not like you need anything fancy." Her manicured nails gleamed as she adjusted her scarf, the gesture casual but deliberate, a reminder of the gulf between us. Liam chuckled, leaning against the doorframe. "Yeah, Paul, you're a simple guy. No need for extravagance." His tone dripped with condescension, and I felt the room shrink, the air growing thick with their shared smugness. I nodded, folding the socks with care I didn't feel. "Appreciate it, both of you." My voice was steady, but my hands trembled slightly, betraying the storm inside. I glanced at the photo of my late wife, Ellen, her soft eyes watching from the frame. Had I failed her, raising a daughter who treated me like an obligation? The thought stung, but I pushed it down. "You staying for coffee?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "Oh, we've got plans," Olivia said, checking her phone. "Dinner with William, Liam's dad. You know how he is, always hosting." She exchanged a quick glance with Liam, a flicker of something I couldn't place, secrecy, maybe, or triumph. My stomach twisted, but I let it pass. They were out the door in minutes, leaving the house quieter than before, the clocks ticking now a hammer against my skull. I carried the socks to the kitchen, needing to move, to do something. The gift bag snagged on the counter's edge, the tissue tearing like a balsa wood promise. I set the socks down and reached for a mug, my hands unsteady. The memory hit me then, Olivia's college tuition, $40,000 a year, paid by selling my dream of a boat, a retirement on the water. I'd told myself it was worth it, that she'd carry our family's love forward. The mug slipped from my grip, shattering on the tile floor. I stared at the pieces, jagged and irreparable, my breath ragged. Had it all been for nothing? I swept up the shards, each scrape of the broom fueling the ache in my chest. Olivia's voice echoed in my mind, "Something useful. Right? And I wondered when she'd stopped seeing me as her father and started seeing me as a means to an end. The kitchen smelled of coffee now, bitter and grounding. I sat at the table, the socks mocking me from the counter. My laptop was open, a habit from years of checking work emails, but today I clicked on social media, needing a distraction. That's when I saw it. A photo, posted an hour ago by Olivia. William, Liam's father, grinning at a restaurant table, his wrist adorned with a gleaming Rolex, the kind that screamed money. Her caption read, "To the best father-in-law, a gift that matches your class." My blood ran cold. I clicked the image, zooming in. The watch's face glinted under the restaurant lights, unmistakable. I remembered her call 2 months ago, her voice trembling, "Daddy, I need $10,000. It's vital, for medical stuff." I'd wired the money that day, no questions asked. My hands shook as I stared at the screen. The socks lay forgotten, the clock ticked on, and something inside me snapped, not loudly, but quietly, like a lock sliding into place. Olivia had called me 17 times later that day, her voice frantic, "Daddy, don't do this." But she didn't know I was already on a path with no room for regret. The kitchen was dim now, the afternoon light choked by gathering clouds. The broken mug shards lay in the trash, but the bitter taste of betrayal lingered, sharper than the coffee cooling in my cup. The laptop screen glowed, William's Rolex burning into my retinas. I zoomed in again, as if the pixels might reveal some mistake, some explanation. Olivia's caption mocked me, "A gift that matches your class." My fingers hovered over the keyboard, trembling with a fury I hadn't felt in years. $10,000. My money, called a vital expense, now glittering on her father-in-law's wrist while I held $15 socks. I slammed the laptop shut, the sound sharp against the kitchen's silence. The clock in the living room ticked on, relentless, each second a reminder of the years I'd given her, every late shift, every dream deferred. I stood, my chair scraping the tile, and grabbed my jacket. I needed air, space to think, anything to dull the rage clawing at my chest. The socks stayed on the counter, their price tag a silent accusation. Outside, the Chicago suburb was too perfect, manicured lawns, blooming azaleas, a facade of harmony that hid the rot beneath. The sky was heavy, promising rain, and the air smelled of damp grass. I walked toward the park, my steps quick, as if I could outrun the image of that watch. My phone buzzed in my pocket, Olivia, again, her 17th call today. I ignored it, the vibration against my thigh a faint echo of my pulse. "Daddy, don't do this," she'd pleaded earlier, but what did she think I'd do? Forgive her? Pretend I hadn't seen? The park was quiet, the swings swaying slightly in the breeze. I stopped by the old wooden bench where I used to push Olivia on the swings, her laughter filling the air. A memory surfaced, unbidden, her at 6, pigtails bouncing, promising she'd always be your little girl. I'd believed her then, believed in the bond we'd built after Ellen's death. Now, that promise felt like a lie, as hollow as the gift bag she'd handed me. I sat, the bench creaking under me, and stared at the empty swing. The Rolex flashed in my mind, a taunt I couldn't shake. "Paul, that you?" A voice broke my thoughts. It was Carl, my neighbor, jogging by with his spaniel. His round face was flushed, friendly as always. I forced a smile, standing to meet him. "Didn't expect to see you out here," he said, reining in his dog. "Thought you'd be celebrating with Olivia." "Celebrating's done," I said, my voice flatter than I meant. Carl tilted his head, curious, but I waved it off. "Just needed a walk." He nodded, scratching his dog's ears. "Saw your girl downtown last month, you know. At that fancy jewelry store on Oak Street. Looked like she was picking out something big." He chuckled, oblivious to the bomb he'd just dropped. "Guess she's got expensive taste, huh?" My throat tightened. "Yeah, I managed, she does." The park spun slightly, the swing's chains blurring. Oak Street. The jewelry store. The Rolex. Carl kept talking, something about the weather, but I barely heard him. My mind raced, piecing it together. Olivia, not at a doctor's office, but in a glittering store, spending my money on a watch for William. The betrayal sank deeper, a blade twisting in my gut. "Gotta get home before the rain," Carl said, jogging off with a wave. I stood frozen, the first raindrops speckling my jacket. The park felt smaller, the swing a relic of a life that no longer existed. I walked back, my steps heavier now, the anger hardening into something colder, more focused. Olivia had lied, and Liam had laughed, and I'd been the fool who trusted them. Back in the kitchen, the socks were still there, a pathetic contrast to the Rolex's gleam. I opened my laptop again, the photo still on the screen. My hands were steady now, the trembling gone. I typed "Oak Street Jewelry Store" into the search bar, my jaw tight. The clock ticked, but it wasn't just time slipping away, it was the illusion of my daughter. I clicked on the store's website, a plan forming, sharp and unyielding. I needed to know if that watch was real, if her betrayal was as brazen as it seemed. The rain tapped the window, steady as a heartbeat, and I knew there was no going back. The rain drummed on my windshield as I pulled into the lot near Oak Street, the wiper's rhythmic swish the only sound in the car. My hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles pale, a folded printout of William's Rolex photo tucked in my jacket pocket. Yesterday's shock had hardened overnight into a cold, relentless need to know. The Chicago skyline loomed through the drizzle, its steel and glass indifferent to the storm brewing inside me. I stepped out, the air sharp with the scent of wet pavement and expensive perfume wafting from the boutiques. The jewelry store's sign glowed ahead, a beacon of truth or damnation. Inside, the store was a world apart from my modest home, polished marble floors, chandeliers casting prisms on glass cases, the air heavy with wealth. A young clerk in a tailored suit approached, her smile practiced. "Welcome, sir. Looking for something special?" Her voice was smooth, but I caught the quick glance at my rumpled jacket, my scuffed shoes. I didn't belong here, and she knew it. Neither did Olivia, but she'd walked these floors, spending my money. "I need information," I said, pulling out the printout. My voice was steady, though my heart pounded. "This watch. Was it purchased here?" I unfolded the paper, the Rolex's image stark against the white background. The clerk's eyes flickered with recognition, and my stomach churned. She hesitated, glancing toward a man at the back, older, balding, clearly the manager. "Let me check with our jeweler," she said, taking the printout and disappearing behind a velvet curtain. I stood, the store's silence pressing against me, broken only by the faint tick of a display clock. That sound again, time, always slipping, always mocking. I thought of Olivia's call last night, her voice shrill through the voicemail, "Daddy, please, just talk to me." I hadn't answered. Not yet. The manager emerged, holding the printout. "I'm Mr. Kessler," he said, his tone professional but cautious. "This is a Rolex Daytona, yes. We sold one like it in March." He handed the paper back, his eyes studying me. "May I ask why you're inquiring?" My throat tightened, but I kept my gaze level. "It was a gift. I need to confirm it was purchased here." "And who bought it?" I slid my credit card statement across the counter, the $10,000 charge circled in red. My hand didn't shake, though inside I was unraveling. "This is my account." "Was it used for the purchase?" Kessler's face softened, a flicker of understanding. He tapped at a tablet, then nodded. "The transaction matches. Paid in full, March 15th. A young woman made the purchase, accompanied by a man. She said it was for a family member." His words landed like a punch, each one confirming what I'd dreaded. Olivia. Liam. My money. Was the watch real? I asked, my voice low, almost a growl. Kessler raised an eyebrow, but he answered. "Absolutely. We don't deal in counterfeits. That piece was $10,200 with tax. He paused, sensing my tension. Is there a problem, sir? I forced a tight smile. No problem. Just needed to know. I took the printout and statement, folding them carefully, as if they were evidence in a trial. The store's lights felt too bright now, the air too thick. I thanked Kessler and stepped back into the rain, my shoes splashing in shallow puddles. The truth was mine, and it was worse than I'd imagined. In my car, I sat, the printout crumpled in my fist. The rain blurred the windshield, and I saw Olivia's face in my mind, not the woman who'd lied, but the girl who'd cried when I bandaged her scraped knee. A memory surfaced, 2 months ago, her voice soft, desperate. It's for medical bills, Daddy. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't serious. I'd believed her, wired the money, felt like a good father. Now, I felt like a fool. I glanced at my reflection in the rearview mirror, gray hair, tired eyes, but a hardness I hadn't seen before. The man staring back wasn't the Paul who'd accepted socks with a smile. He was someone new, someone done being played. My phone sat on the passenger seat, Olivia's missed calls piling up. 17 yesterday, 3 more today. She knew I'd seen the photo. She knew I was asking questions. My fingers hovered over her name, the screen glowing in the dim car. The rain pounded harder, a drumroll for the confrontation to come. I pressed call, my jaw tight, and waited as it rang. Whatever she said next, it wouldn't change the truth. The clock in my mind ticked louder, counting down to something inevitable. The rain hammered the roof of my car, a relentless drumbeat that matched the pulse in my temples. I sat parked outside my house, the Chicago suburb cloaked in evening's gloom, my phone glowing in my hand like a weapon. The printout of William's Rolex lay crumpled on the passenger seat, its edges curling like a guilty secret. My thumb hovered over Olivia's name, her missed calls, 20 now, stacking up like accusations. The truth I'd uncovered in the jewelry store burned in my chest, $10,000, my money, spent on a watch for her father-in-law while I got socks. I pressed call, my jaw tight, the rain blurring the world outside. The line clicked, and Olivia's voice burst through, sharp and impatient. Daddy, finally. Why haven't you answered? Her tone was a mix of relief and irritation, as if I were the one who owed her something. I gripped the steering wheel, the leather slick under my palm, and took a slow breath. I've been busy, I said, my voice low, deliberate. Had to check on something. Like a $10,000 Rolex. The words landed like stones, and for a moment, there was silence, just the rain's steady roar. I could almost see her, pacing her pristine living room, her manicured nails tapping her phone. What are you talking about? She snapped, but there was a tremor in her voice, a crack in her armor. You're being ridiculous. Am I? I leaned forward, my eyes on the windshield, where rain streaked like tears I refused to shed. I went to the store, Olivia. Oak Street. They confirmed it. You used my card. For William. My voice stayed even, but each word carried the weight of betrayal. The clock in my mind ticked, relentless, counting the seconds of her hesitation. She laughed, a brittle, forced sound. God, you always make a mountain out of nothing. It was a gift, okay? William's done so much for us. You wouldn't understand. Her condescension stung, but it was the panic beneath it that caught my attention. She was scrambling. A gift, I repeated, my tone flat. With my money. You told me it was for medical bills. Vital, you said. My free hand clenched into a fist, nails biting my palm. What else have you lied about? This isn't your business, she shot back, her voice rising, shrill now. You don't get to control what I do. I'm not a kid anymore, Daddy. The word daddy was a mockery, thrown like a dart. I remembered her at 16, begging for a designer dress, promising she'd make me proud. I'd believed her then. Not now. Then act like an adult, I said, my voice cold. Explain it. Now. The rain intensified, a curtain sealing me in this moment, this reckoning. Olivia's breathing was audible. Quick and uneven, and I knew she was cornered. You're so petty, she spat. I don't have time for this. The line went dead, the silence louder than the storm. I stared at the phone, her words echoing, petty, ridiculous, not your business. My chest ached, but it wasn't just pain anymore. It was resolve, hard and unyielding. I stepped out of the car, the rain soaking my jacket, my hair. The cold shocked my skin, but it cleared my head. I opened my phone's notes app, my fingers wet, and typed her words, each one a brick in the case I was building. Not your business. Petty. The street was empty, the houses glowing with warmth I no longer felt. Olivia thought she could dismiss me, but she'd miscalculated. I wasn't the pushover she assumed. I leaned against the car, the rain pooling at my feet, and remembered Ellen's voice, soft but firm, "Don't let anyone walk over you, Paul." I'd failed that promise for too long, but not anymore. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number, "Mr. Thompson, I'm Elaine Carter, attorney. Heard you might need help. Meet me tomorrow, 9 a.m., 200 N LaSalle." I stared at the message, the rain blurring the screen. An attorney. A stranger, offering a lifeline. My thumb hovered over reply, the clock in my mind ticking towards something new. The morning sun sliced through the blinds of Elaine Carter's office, casting stripes across a desk buried in papers and coffee mugs. The air smelled of stale espresso and old books, a cluttered contrast to the sleek Chicago high-rise outside. I sat across from Elaine, my bank statement spread before me like a map of my mistakes. The weight of last night's call with Olivia lingered, her venom, "You're so petty," still stinging. But here, in this chaotic office, I felt a flicker of something new, possibility. The clock on the wall ticked, its hands slow but steady, a reminder that time wasn't done with me yet. Elaine leaned back in her chair, her gray blazer slightly wrinkled, her eyes sharp despite the laugh lines framing them. "So," she said, tapping a pen against her desk, "your daughter's got a taste for Rolexes and a talent for lying. That about sum it up?" Her voice was direct, laced with a dry humor that caught me off guard. I nodded, managing a tight smile. "Pretty much," I said, my fingers brushing the edge of a statement. The $10,000 charge glared up at me, wound in black ink. She used my card. Lied about it. And those socks, I trailed off, the memory of Olivia's smug smile twisting my gut. Elaine snorted. Socks. For Father's Day. Kid's got nerve. She leaned forward, scanning the documents. But nerve doesn't pay for watches. Let's talk options. You want to protect what's yours, right? Her question was blunt, but her tone held a warmth that made me trust her, or at least want to. I shifted in my seat, the chair creaking. I do. But I don't know where to start. She's my daughter. The words felt heavy, a confession of my weakness. I'd spent 20 years building a life for Olivia. After Ellen died, every choice was for her. No trips to Europe, no hobbies, just her college, her wedding, her future. And now, this. Elaine's expression softened, but her voice stayed firm. You're not the first parent she's burned, Paul. Won't be the last unless you act. She slid a contract toward me. I can help. Start with freezing her access to your accounts. Then we dig, see what else she's been up to. Her confidence was infectious, a lifeline I hadn't expected. I picked up the contract, the paper cool against my fingers. A memory surfaced, Olivia's wedding, her radiant smile as I handed over the check for the venue, my dream of an Italian vacation fading with it. I'd told myself it was worth it, that she'd carry our family's love. Now, I saw only her hand on my card, her lies piling up. I signed the contract, my pen steady, a quiet vow to myself. Elaine nodded, stacking the papers. Good. We'll start with your bank. I'll need details, every transaction she's touched. She paused, her eyes meeting mine. You sure about this? It's not just money. It's family. I stood, walking to the window. Chicago sprawled below, its pulse relentless. I've given her everything, I said. My voice low. Time I took something back. The words felt foreign, but right. The clock ticked behind me, its rhythm a call to action, not regret. We talked details, accounts, timelines, legal steps. Elaine's humor broke the tension, her quip about teaching Olivia the value of $1, drawing a real laugh from me. I left her office lighter, the sun warm on my face as I stepped onto LaSalle Street. For the first time in days, I felt like I was moving forward, not just reacting. In my car, I checked my phone, habit more than need. A bank alert popped up, a new transaction, $2,500, attempted on my card. Olivia's name was tied to it, another bold grab. My jaw tightened, but I wasn't surprised. The clock in my mind ticked louder, urging me on. Whatever she was buying, she'd find out soon enough that my generosity had limits. The bank's marble floor gleamed under fluorescent lights, its chill seeping through my shoes as I stood at the counter. The air hummed with the low drone of an air conditioner, sharp against the warmth of the May afternoon outside. In my hand, a form to block Olivia's access to my credit card, its lines stark and final. My pen hovered, the weight of 20 years, her laughter, her tears, my sacrifices, pressing against the decision. But the Rolex's glint, her sneering, "You're so petty," drowned it all out. I signed, the scratch of ink a small, defiant act. The clock in my mind ticked, steady, urging me forward. The manager, a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses, reviewed the form. "This will take effect immediately," he said, his voice clipped, professional. "The card's secondary user, Olivia Thompson, will be notified." He glanced at me, as if expecting hesitation. I nodded, my face blank but my pulse racing. Notification. She'd know soon enough. "Appreciate it," I said, sliding the form back. My hands were steady, but inside, triumph warred with a quiet ache. Blocking her card wasn't just about money, it was about reclaiming the dignity she trampled. I left the bank, the glass doors hissing shut behind me, and stepped into the Chicago suburbs' glare, the sun bouncing off parked cars. I drove to a nearby cafe to meet Elaine, the place buzzing with lunchtime chatter. The smell of fresh coffee grounded me as I slid into a booth across from her. She was already there, her laptop open, a half-eaten scone on a plate. "Well?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. "Did you pull the plug?" "Signed and done," I said, a faint smile tugging at my lips. "She's cut off." The words felt good, solid, like a door locking shut. Elaine grinned, leaning back. "Bet she'll love that more than those socks you got." Her humor was sharp, but her eyes held a quiet respect. "Your daughter's about to learn what a practical gift really means." She tapped her laptop. "I'm pulling records. Might find more of her shopping sprees. You ready for what we uncover?" I nodded, sipping my coffee, its bitterness a match for my mood. "I need to know everything." A memory flickered, Olivia's wedding, her hand on my arm as I gave her access to my card, saying it'd help her start strong. I trusted her, thought it was love. Now, I saw only her greed. The cafe's clock hung on the wall, its hands frozen at 11:43, a silent witness to my shift. Time wasn't slipping away anymore, I was stopping it, taking control. Elaine outlined next steps, tracking Olivia's spending, building a case. Her confidence steadied me, our alliance a bridge from the man I'd been to the one I was becoming. "You're doing this for you, Paul," she said, her voice softer now. "Not just to punish her. Remember that." I met her gaze, seeing not just an attorney but a friend, someone who saw my worth when I'd forgotten it. My phone buzzed, shattering the moment. Olivia's name flashed on the screen, her call urgent, angry. I let it ring, the sound swallowed by the cafe's hum. When it stopped, a voicemail popped up, her voice spilling out as I pressed play. "Daddy, what the hell did you do? My cards declined. Fix this, now." Her fury was raw, unfiltered, a crack in her polished facade. I set the phone down, my coffee cup warm in my hands. Elaine raised an eyebrow, but I just smiled. Thin and resolute. The clock in my mind ticked on, counting down to her next move, and mine. The living room was dim, the last of the May twilight seeping through the curtains, casting long shadows across the faded rug. I sat on the couch, the same one where I'd unwrapped Amelia's socks days ago, the memory now a bitter stain. My phone lay on the coffee table, its screen flashing with her name, 17 calls in the past hour, each one a jab at my resolve. The old clock on the mantel, stopped years ago, stared silently, its frozen hands a mirror to my decision to halt her manipulations. Family photos lined the shelf, Amelia at 5, her pigtails bouncing, at 16, her graduation cap tilted. Those moments felt like another life, one where I wasn't the enemy. The phone buzzed again, insistent, her name pulsing like a warning. I let it ring, my fingers tracing the edge of a photo frame, Ellen and Amelia, laughing in a park. The vibration stopped, then started anew, a voicemail this time. I pressed play, bracing myself. Amelia's voice erupted, shrill and jagged. "Daddy, what the hell? My cards declined. Fix this, or I swear we're done." Her words were a blade, slicing through the quiet. Done. As if I were the one who'd lied, who'd spent $10,000 on a Rolex for William while handing me $15 socks. I stood, needing to move, and walked to the kitchen. The air smelled faintly of lemon polish, a habit I'd kept for Ellen. My hands shook as I filled the kettle, but my mind was steady, hardened by her betrayal. Another call came, and this time I answered, my voice cold. "Amelia, stop calling." "Stop calling," she snapped, her tone a mix of disbelief and fury. "You cut me off, Daddy. How am I supposed to live? You're being selfish." Her accusation landed like a slap, but I didn't flinch. Selfish. After years of giving, her college, her wedding, her lies. Selfish? I said, my voice low, controlled. "You used my money for a watch. For William. You lied about medical bills. Explain that." The kettle hissed, steam curling like my anger. Silence stretched on her end, broken only by her sharp breaths. "It's not what you think," she said finally, her voice softer, manipulative. "William's important to us. You wouldn't get it. Just fix the card, please." The "please" was calculated, a child's plea from a woman who'd outgrown it. "No," I said, the word final. "You made your choices. Live with them." I ended the call, my heart pounding but my resolve intact. The phone buzzed again, another voicemail. "You'll regret this," she hissed. "Liam won't let this slide." Liam. Her spineless husband, always in her shadow, now a threat. What were they planning? I set the phone down, its screen dark now, and touched the stopped clock, its brass cool under my fingers. A memory surfaced, Amelia at 10, running to me after a fight with friends, her tears soaking my shirt. I'd been her safe place then. Now, I was her obstacle. The kettle whistled, shrill as her voice, and I poured tea, the steam clouding my view of her photo. She wasn't that girl anymore, and I wasn't the father who'd forgive endlessly. My phone lit up again, not Amelia this time but a text from Elaine, "Police station, tomorrow, 8 a.m. Amelia and Liam filed a complaint. I've got your back." My stomach dropped. A complaint? The room felt smaller, the shadows deeper. The clock's silence mocked me, but I straightened, my tea untouched. Whatever Amelia was throwing at me, I'd face it. The fight was just beginning. The police station smelled of burnt coffee and ink, its fluorescent lights buzzing like a trapped insect. I sat in a cramped office, the chair hard against my back, a manila folder open on the desk before me. Officer Daniels, a burly man with a skeptical frown, flipped through Amelia's complaint, his eyes flicking to me as if I were the criminal. Elaine sat beside me, her blazer sharp, her presence a shield. Outside, Chicago's morning was gray, clouds pressing low, mirroring the weight in my chest. Amelia and Liam had struck back, accusing me of financial abuse for cutting off their access to my money. The audacity burned, but Elaine's steady gaze kept me grounded. Daniels cleared his throat. His voice gruff. "Mr. Thompson, your daughter and son-in-law claim you've restricted their access to family funds, causing them hardship. Care to explain?" His tone suggested I was already guilty, and my hands tightened around the pen I held, its plastic edges biting my palm. "Family funds?" I said, my voice even but edged. "It's my money. They spent $10,000 of it on a watch for someone else. I blocked their access to stop the theft." The word theft hung in the air, heavy, true. Daniels raised an eyebrow, scribbling a note. Elaine leaned forward, her voice crisp, commanding. "Officer, my client has every right to protect his assets. His daughter, Amelia, misrepresented expenses, using his card for unauthorized purchases. We have bank statements, receipts, and a jeweler's confirmation." She slid a folder across the desk, her movements precise. "This isn't abuse. It's self-defense." Daniels scanned the documents, his frown deepening. "This says the purchase was for a Rolex. You're saying she lied about the purpose?" His skepticism shifted, now aimed at Amelia's story, and I felt a spark of hope. "Exactly," I said, meeting his gaze. "She told me it was for medical bills." "It wasn't. A memory flashed, Liam at my house years ago, promising to take care of Amelia, his smile too slick. Now he'd co-signed this complaint, his name scrawled beside hers, a coward hiding behind her venom." Elaine's hand brushed my arm, a subtle signal to stay calm. "Officer," she continued, "this complaint is retaliatory. Mr. Thompson acted within his rights. If anything, we're considering charges for fraud." Her tone was steel, and Daniels leaned back, reassessing. "We'll review this," he said, closing the folder. "But I'll need statements from both parties." He stood, signaling the end, and I felt the room expand, the pressure easing slightly. Elaine gathered her papers, her confidence unshaken. In her car, the air was warmer, the scent of leather and mint gum a relief from the station's staleness. Elaine started the engine, her modern wristwatch glinting, a contrast to my old, stopped one, a sign of the new path I was on. "They're desperate," she said, glancing at me. "Filing a complaint? That's a weak move. We've got them on the ropes." I nodded, staring out at the cloudy city. Liam's name on that complaint, didn't expect him to step up. My voice was quiet, but the betrayal stung. He'd always been Amelia's shadow, content to let her scheme. Now he was in the fight. "He's scared," Elaine said, a smirk tugging her lips. "They both are. But we're not done. Ever thought about your will, Paul? Might be time to rewrite some things." Her words landed softly, but they carried weight, a seed of a plan. I pulled out my notebook, its pages already filled with Amelia's lies, and jotted down, "will." The pen felt heavy, each stroke a step toward something final. The city blurred past, and I wondered how far Amelia would go to keep her grip on me. Elaine's watch ticked faintly, a reminder that time was mine to reclaim. The notary's office was a pocket of calm in Chicago's midday bustle, its air thick with the scent of aged paper and polished wood. I sat at a heavy oak table, a stack of documents before me, each page a brick in the wall I was building against Amelia's greed. Elaine stood nearby, checking clauses with a practiced eye, her presence steadying me. The spring sun filtered through tall windows, warming the room, but my hands were cold as I gripped the pen. Rewriting my will, cutting Amelia out, was a knife to my heart, but also a key to my freedom. The clock in my mind ticked, no longer mocking but urging me on. The notary, a soft-spoken woman with silver hair, adjusted her glasses. "Mr. Thompson, this new will designates your estate to a trust, with Ms. Carter as executor. Is that correct?" Her voice was gentle, but the question carried the weight of finality. I nodded, my throat tight. "That's right," I said, my voice steady despite the ache. "No direct beneficiaries." The words felt like a betrayal of the promises I'd made to Ellen, to Amelia, securing her future, keeping our family whole. But Amelia had shattered that, her $10,000 lie a fracture I couldn't mend. Elaine caught my eye, her smile small but encouraging. "You're doing the right thing, Paul. This cuts off their dreams of your money. Clean break." Her tone was light, but her words grounded me. "Plus, I'm a damn good executor," she added, winking, and I chuckled, the tension easing for a moment. I signed the first page, the pen scratched loud in the quiet room. A memory surfaced, drafting my original will after Ellen's death, Amelia just 12, her future my only focus. I'd sat up nights, planning to give her everything, security, love, a legacy. Now, I was erasing her name, each signature a severance. The notary stamped the pages, her movements precise, and I felt a strange relief, like shedding a weight I'd carried too long. "All done," the notary said, sliding the documents into a folder. "Copies will be filed by end of day." I thanked her, my voice distant, and followed Elaine out into the spring air. The city hummed, vibrant, alive, and I felt a flicker of that energy in myself. We walked to a nearby park, the grass vivid green, children's laughter drifting from a playground. I sat on a bench, Elaine beside me, her silence companionable. A bird took flight nearby, its wings cutting the sky, and I saw it as a sign, freedom, hard won but mine. "This changes everything," I said, my voice low. "She's really gone now?" Elaine nodded, her eyes on the kids playing. "Not gone, Paul. Just not your burden anymore. You're taking back your life." Her words were soft, but they carried the strength I needed. I thought of Amelia's voicemails, her threats, and felt no regret, only resolve. "There's more we can do," Elaine said, her tone shifting, cryptic. "William, for instance. I've got some ideas, but we'll need to tread carefully." She didn't elaborate, and I didn't press, trusting her instincts. The park's clock tower chimed noon, its sound clear, a reminder of time moving forward, not back. My phone buzzed, breaking the moment. William's name flashed on the screen, a call, not a text. "Paul, we need to talk," his voice said through voicemail, gruff but urgent. "Meet me at my office tomorrow, 10 a.m. I stared at the phone, the bird's flight now a distant speck. What did Amelia's father-in-law want? The clock in my mind ticked louder, counting down to answers I wasn't sure I was ready for. The sunset painted the Chicago skyline in hues of amber and rose, its glow barely softening the cold elegance of William's mansion. I stepped through the heavy oak doors, the marble foyer gleaming under a chandelier's light, each prism casting sharp reflections like the truth I carried. Elaine's note, tucked in my pocket, had summoned me here, "William knows. Be ready." My heart thudded, not with fear but with the weight of justice drawing near. The air smelled of polished wood and wealth, a stark contrast to my modest home, yet I stood tall, my resolve a shield. The clock in my mind ticked, steady, marking the moment Amelia's lies would unravel. William waited in the study, his broad frame rigid behind a mahogany desk. His face, usually stern but fair, was etched with fury, his eyes dark as he gripped a velvet box. Elaine stood nearby, her blazer crisp, her expression calm but alert. "Paul," William said, his voice low, gravelly, "I owe you an apology." He slid the box across the desk, its contents unmistakable, a Rolex, the one Amelia had bought with my $10,000, now a symbol of her betrayal. I didn't touch it, my hands steady at my sides. "You didn't know," I said, my tone even, though my pulse raced. "She lied to us both." The words were simple, but they carried years of sacrifice, college tuition, missed dreams, all for a daughter who'd traded my love for a watch. William's jaw tightened, his fingers trembling as he opened the box. The Rolex gleamed, its face mocking under the study's lights. "She told me it was her gift," he said, his voice cracking with disgust. "Said it was to thank me for my support. I'd never have taken it if I'd known it was yours." His honesty cut through the room's opulence, and for the first time, I saw not the powerful businessman but a man betrayed, like me. Elaine stepped forward, her voice precise. "Amelia misrepresented the funds. William. We have bank records, her signature, the jeweler's testimony. She used Paul's money without consent." Her words were a scalpel, exposing the wound. She glanced at me, a silent nudge to stay strong. William slammed the box shut, the sound sharp. "She's been cozying up to my business, too," he said, his eyes narrowing. "Pushing for a role, dropping hints about investments. I thought it was ambition. Now I see it's greed." His admission hung heavy, a clue to Amelia's deeper schemes, but he didn't elaborate, and I didn't press. "Not yet." I met his gaze, my voice firm. "I don't want your pity, William. I want what's right." The words felt like a vow, not just to him but to myself, to Ellen's memory. He nodded, pushing the box toward me. "Take it," he said. "It's yours. And I'll deal with Amelia." His tone promised consequences, and I believed him. I lifted the box, its weight grounding me, a tangible piece of my dignity returned. We left the study, Elaine's hand brushing my arm in quiet support. Outside, the evening air was cool, the city's hum distant. In my car, I opened the box, the Rolex glinting in the fading light. A memory surfaced, William at a family dinner years ago, praising Amelia's heart, his pride now shattered. I closed the box, my fingers steady. This wasn't just a watch, it was proof I wasn't the fool Amelia thought. My phone buzzed, a missed call from Amelia, followed by a text, "We need to talk." The screen glowed in the dim car, her words a plea or a trap. I set the phone down, the Rolex box heavy in my lap, and started the engine. The clock in my mind ticked on, counting down to her next move. The morning sun warmed the porch of my Chicago suburban home, its rays catching the dew on the azaleas, their petals trembling in the breeze. I stood at the door, my hand on the knob, the creak of the floorboards underfoot a familiar comfort. Amelia's text from last night, "We need to talk," had lingered, but I hadn't expected her to show up, not like this. She stood on the porch with Liam, her auburn hair loose, her eyes red-rimmed, her usual poise fraying like a worn thread. Liam slouched beside her, his gaze fixed on the ground, his hands stuffed in his pockets. The sight of them, stripped of their smugness, stirred no pity, only a quiet strength in me. The clock in my mind ticked, steady, marking the end of their hold. I opened the door wider but stayed on the threshold, my arms crossed. "What do you want?" My voice was calm, unyielding, a far cry from the father who'd once melted at her tears. The porch smelled of fresh earth, the flowers a reminder of the life I'd built without her lies. Amelia's lips quivered, her voice breaking. "Daddy, please. We're sorry. We messed up." She clutched her purse, her nails digging into the leather, a nervous tick I hadn't seen since her teenage years. "The watch, the money, it was a mistake. Let us make it right." Her eyes searched mine, desperate, but I saw the calculation beneath, the hope I'd cave. Liam cleared his throat, his voice weak. "Yeah, Paul, we didn't mean to hurt you. Things got out of hand. He glanced at Amelia, as if waiting for her to lead, his cowardice as clear as ever. I remembered him at their wedding, promising to stand by her, his words now hollow. I stepped onto the porch, the wood creaking under my weight, and leaned against the railing. A mistake, I said, my tone sharp but controlled. You spent $10,000 of my money on a watch for William. Lied about medical bills. Filed a police complaint. That's not a mistake. That's a choice. My words were measured, each one a stone in the wall I'd built against them. Amelia's tears spilled over, but they didn't move me. We've lost everything, she whispered, her voice cracking. William's furious. He cut us off. Please, Daddy, we need you. The admission hinted at deeper losses, her plans with William's business, perhaps, but she didn't elaborate, and I didn't care to ask. I straightened, my gaze steady. You made your choices. Live with them. The words echoed my earlier resolve, now a mantra. A memory flashed, Amelia at 7, pressing a crayon-drawn card into my hands, her smile pure. That girl was gone. Replaced by this stranger begging for absolution I couldn't give. Liam shifted, mumbling, "We'll do anything, Paul. Just name it." His desperation was pathetic, but it only hardened me. I shook my head, stepping back toward the door. There's nothing left to say, I said, my voice final. The door's hinges groaned as I pushed it open, a symbol of the barrier between us. Amelia's sob followed me, but I didn't turn back. Inside, the living room was quiet, the stopped clock on the mantel a silent witness to my choice. I closed the door, the latch clicking shut, and leaned against it, my breath steady. My phone buzzed on the coffee table, Elaine's name lighting the screen. I answered, her voice bright. Paul, got time for a walk? Park, noon. We need to talk about the final step. Her words carried promise, a hint of something bigger. I glanced at the closed door, the porch now empty, and felt the clock in my mind tick toward a future I was ready to claim. The park was alive with late May's vibrancy, the Chicago air sweet with blooming lilacs and fresh-cut grass. I walked beside Elaine, the gravel path crunching under our steps, the sun warm on my face. In my pocket, a check from the jeweler who'd bought the Rolex, $9,800 after fees, a sum I'd already decided to give away. The weight of Amelia's betrayal, once a stone in my chest, had lifted, replaced by a quiet freedom. Children laughed on the swings, their voices a melody of possibility, and I felt it too, a new beginning, hard one but mine. The clock in my mind ticked softly now, not counting down but forward. Elaine nudged my shoulder, her eyes glinting with mischief. You could have bought a yacht with that money, Paul. Or at least a fancy watch for yourself. Her tone was light, teasing, but her smile held pride. She'd been with me through every step, bank forms, police stations, the will, and now, here, her friendship was a gift I hadn't expected. I chuckled, the sound easy. I chose peace instead, I said, patting the check in my pocket. Kids shelter downtown. They'll do more with it than I ever could. The decision had come naturally, a way to turn Amelia's betrayal into something good. Elaine nodded, her expression softening. Damn good choice, she said, kicking a pebble. Though I'm holding out for a coffee date next time you're feeling generous. Her wink drew a laugh from me, and I felt a warmth that wasn't just the sun, a spark, maybe, of something more, though neither of us named it. We reached the lake, its surface shimmering under the noon light. I pulled out a flat stone, skimming it across the water, the ripples spreading in perfect circles. A memory surfaced, walking here with Ellen, her hand in mine, promising we'd face the world together. I'd lost her, then Amelia, but now I was finding myself. The ripples faded, but their impact lingered, like the choices I'd made. Earlier, I'd visited the shelter's office, a modest space with peeling paint and earnest staff. The director, a woman with kind eyes, had taken the check, her gratitude humbling. "This'll change lives, Mr. Thompson," she'd said, and I'd nodded, my throat tight. The Rolex, once a symbol of betrayal, had become a bridge to something better. Elaine stopped by a bench, her gaze on the lake. "You've come a long way, you know," she said, her voice quieter now. "From socks to this. Not bad for a guy who thought he'd lost everything." Her words landed gently, a reminder of the man I'd been and the one I was becoming. I sat beside her, the bench warm from the sun. "Couldn't have done it without you," I said, meeting her eyes. "You gave me a shot at fighting back." The truth was simple but profound, she'd seen my worth when I hadn't. A breeze stirred the trees, carrying the scent of spring, and I felt Ellen's presence, her approval. Elaine grinned, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Stick with me, Paul. I've got a new project, community fund, maybe. Could use a guy with your heart." Her offer was vague, a door left ajar, and I liked the mystery of it, the promise of a future unwritten. I tossed another stone, watching the ripples spread. The park hummed with life, and I was part of it, no longer bound by Amelia's lies or my own doubts. Elaine stood, offering her hand, and I took it, her touch warm, steady. We walked on, her laughter mingling with the breeze, and I knew, whatever came next, I was ready. The clock in my mind ticked softly, a rhythm of hope, guiding me into a life I'd earned. If you liked this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching. My son called me bragging about the new apartment for his wife Sophie, but his next words froze my blood. "Dad, you're paying the mortgage because we decided it's your responsibility." I refused, thinking it was a joke, but a $600,000 lawsuit proved to me that it was real. Everything changed when the judge reviewed all the evidence. No one expected that. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you are listening in the comments. The phone buzzed on the kitchen counter, its vibration rattling against a chipped mug of coffee gone cold. I glanced at the screen. Liam. My son, always calling at odd hours. I wiped my hands on a dish towel, the rough fabric catching on my calloused fingers, and answered. His voice burst through, bright and boasting, like he was selling me something. "Dad, you won't believe it. We got the penthouse. Downtown Boston, floor-to-ceiling windows, the works. Sophie's over the moon." I smiled, leaning against the counter. The image of Liam in a sleek apartment warmed me, despite the January chill seeping through the window. My house, a modest split level in the suburbs, creaked under the weight of a fresh snow. "That's great, son. Really proud of you too." "Yeah, it's a game changer. You gotta see it." He paused, his tone shifting, like he was testing the waters. "We're thinking of swinging by soon. You know, to celebrate. You'll do something special for us, right? You always come through." The words hung there, heavier than they should have been. I frowned, my grip tightening on the phone. "Something special? Like what, Liam?" He laughed, quick and sharp. "Oh, you'll figure it out. You always do. Anyway, gotta run. Sophie's calling me. See you soon, Dad." The line went dead. I stood there, staring at the phone, my thumb hovering over the screen. The kitchen felt smaller, the faded wallpaper and scuffed linoleum closing in. Liam's voice echoed in my head, that edge of expectation I hadn't heard before, or maybe I had and ignored it. I set the phone down, too hard. A photo frame on the shelf wobbled and fell, the glass cracking over a picture of Liam at 10, gap-toothed and grinning on my shoulders. My chest tightened. I walked to the living room, the floorboards groaning under my steps. The old couch sagged as I sank into it, my eyes drifting to the snow piling up outside. I'd spent years making sure Liam had everything, college tuition, his first car, even the deposit for his wedding. Each sacrifice felt like a brick in a wall I thought would hold us together. But his words, that casual, "you always come through," gnawed at me. What did he mean? I got up, restless, and started tidying the house. Liam hadn't visited in months, and the thought of him and Sophie here, in my cluttered space, sparked a mix of pride and unease. I straightened the cushions, dusted the mantel, my hands moving on autopilot. The photo frame lay where it fell, the crack splintering Liam's smile. I left it there, not ready to touch it. The kettle whistled, and I poured hot water over a tea bag, the steam curling in the dim light. I tried to shake the feeling, telling myself I was overthinking. Liam was my son. He'd always been a bit flashy, sure, but he wasn't cruel. Still, I couldn't unhear that tone, like he was tallying what I owed him. I sipped the tea, wincing as it burned my tongue, and glanced at the clock. 8 p.m. Too late for a call, too early for bed. I paced, my socks catching on the worn carpet. The snow kept falling, blanketing the lawn in silence. I stood by the window, my reflection faint in the glass, a 62-year-old man with graying hair and a face carved by years of quiet choices. I thought of Liam's penthouse, all glass and glamour, and wondered how he'd afforded it. His job as a marketing consultant paid well, but not that well. A flicker of doubt crossed my mind, but I pushed it away. He was my son. I'd raised him to be better. Then I heard it, a low rumble, the crunch of tires on snow. Headlights swept across the lawn, cutting through the dark. My pulse quickened. Liam's car. I set the mug down, the tea sloshing over the rim, and moved toward the door. Something was off, a prickle at the back of my neck. But I didn't know how bad it would get. The front door swung open, letting in a gust of icy air and the sound of Liam's laugh. He stepped inside, his coat dusted with snow, Sophie trailing behind like she was walking a runway. Her heels clicked on the hardwood, sharp and deliberate. I forced a smile, my hands still damp from wiping down the counter. "Liam, Sophie, good to see you." I gestured to the living room. "Come in, sit. Tea? Coffee?" Sophie's lips curved, not quite a smile. "No, thanks, Rob. We won't be long." She smoothed her coat, her nails catching the light, perfect, blood red. Liam clapped me on the shoulder, too hard, and dropped onto the couch like he owned it. "Place hasn't changed, Dad. Same old couch." He grinned, but his eyes darted around, taking stock. I caught the edge in his voice, like he was sizing up my life and finding it lacking. I sat across from them, the coffee table between us, its scratched surface holding a tray of untouched cookies. "So, tell me about this penthouse. Sounds like a big step." Liam leaned back, arms spread wide. "Huge. Marble counters, skyline views. Sophie's already planning the housewarming." He glanced at her, and she nodded, her expression cool, like she was waiting for her cue. "It's stunning," she said, her voice smooth as glass. "The kind of place you raise a family in. Right, Liam?" I nodded, my pride for them warring with that nagging unease from Liam's call. "Must have cost a fortune. You two doing all right with that?" Liam's grin faltered, just for a second. Then Sophie leaned forward, her purse sliding to the floor with a soft thud. She reached inside and pulled out a glossy folder, the bank's logo gleaming on the cover. My stomach twisted as she set it on the table, her fingers lingering like she was presenting a gift. "Rob," she said, her tone clipped, "we wanted to talk about the mortgage." I blinked, my hands resting on my knees. "The mortgage?" Liam jumped in, his voice louder now. "Yeah, Dad. It's a lot, sure, but you've always had our backs. College, the wedding, you never let us down." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, like he was closing a deal. "We figured you'd handle this, too." My mouth went dry. I looked from Liam to Sophie, her eyes locked on mine, unblinking. "Handle it? You mean pay it?" Sophie's smile tightened. It's your responsibility, Rob. You've always been our support. We assumed you'd be happy to help. The room felt too small, the air too thick. My fingers dug into the armrest, the fabric fraying under my grip. You're asking me to pay for your apartment? Liam, that's not how this works. Liam's face hardened. Not how it works. Dad, we're family. You want us to lose this place? After everything you've done for us? His voice rose, accusing, like I was the one betraying him. I stood, my knees unsteady. I've given you enough. More than enough. This is your life, not mine. Sophie sighed, like I was a child throwing a tantrum. She stood, brushing her coat. Think about it, Rob. We'd hate for this to get messy. She nodded at the folder, still on the table, its edges sharp against the wood. Liam followed her, his jaw tight. You're making a mistake, Dad. Don't say we didn't warn you. He stormed out, the door slamming behind them, the sound echoing like a gunshot. Sophie's heels faded into the snow, and then it was just me, the folder, and the silence. I sank back into the chair, my heart pounding. The folder stared up at me, a challenge I hadn't seen coming. My hands shook as I reached for it, but I stopped short, afraid of what it held. Liam's words, "You've always had our backs," twisted in my head, mocking me. I'd raised him, loved him, given him everything. And this was how he repaid me. The room was dark now, the snow outside glowing under a streetlight. I sat there, staring at the folder, my shock burning into something else, something hard and unyielding. They thought I'd roll over, hand them my life savings like I always had. They were wrong. The folder lay open on the table, its pages fanned out like a taunt. I hadn't touched it since Liam and Sophie left, but its presence filled the room, heavy as the snow piling up outside. My hands rested on my thighs, fingers twitching, itching to tear the papers apart. Instead, I sat frozen, the silence of the house pressing against my ears. I thought of Liam at 18, his eyes bright as I handed him the keys to his first car. I'd worked overtime for months to afford it, my back aching from long shifts at the engineering firm. He'd hugged me, promised he'd make me proud. Now, those promises felt like lies, each one a cut deeper than the last. I stood, my chair scraping the floor, and paced the living room, my socks catching on the rug's frayed edge. The folder wasn't just paper, it was a betrayal, calculated and cold. Sophie's voice echoed in my head, that polished venom, "It's your responsibility, Rob." And Liam, my own son, backing her up like I was nothing but a bank account. I stopped by the mantel, my eyes landing on the cracked photo frame. Liam's grin mocked me through the splintered glass. I grabbed it, my thumb brushing the crack, and for a moment, I wanted to hurl it across the room. Instead, I set it down, hard, the thud swallowed by the quiet. My mind spiraled back to other moments I'd ignored. The way Liam had shrugged off paying for his own wedding, saying, "You got this, Dad." The loans I'd co-signed for his failed business, the ones I was still paying off. Each memory was a weight, stacking higher until my chest ached. Had I been blind, or just too desperate to believe he'd change? I crossed to the window, the snow now a thick blanket over the lawn. My reflection stared back, a tired man who'd given too much. I thought of my own father, his stern voice warning me to stand up for myself. "Don't let anyone walk over you, Rob," he'd said. I'd nodded, but never listened, not when it came to Liam. I'd wanted to be the father I never had, the one who gave everything. And now, here I was, staring at a folder that demanded the rest. My hand drifted to the folder, flipping it open. Numbers blurred together, $600,000, monthly payments, my name scrawled in a box labeled "Cosigner." My breath caught. They hadn't just asked, they'd planned this, forged my name, assumed I'd cave. The audacity of it lit something inside me, a spark of anger that burned hotter with every second. I slammed the folder shut, the sound sharp in the stillness. I sank onto the couch, my head in my hands. I'd always thought love meant sacrifice, but this wasn't love, it was theft. Liam and Sophie had taken my trust and twisted it into a weapon. But I wasn't the pushover they thought. Not anymore. The room felt colder now, the radiator's hum barely cutting through the chill. I stood again, restless, and grabbed my phone from the counter. Its screen was dark, but as I touched it, it lit up with a notification. A social media post from Sophie. My thumb hovered, then pressed. Her words appeared, bright and cruel, and my blood ran cold. Everything I thought I knew about their betrayal shifted, and I realized this was only the beginning. The phone's screen glowed in the dark, Sophie's post searing into my eyes like a brand. Some people forget family when money's involved, she wrote, a winking emoji punctuating the jab. Below, Liam's comment, guess Dad's too selfish to help us build a future. The words twisted in my gut, each one a betrayal sharper than the last. I scrolled, my thumb trembling, as likes and comments piled up, strangers, neighbors, even old colleagues piling on. Ungrateful old man, one said. What kind of father does that? Another sneered. My face burned, the shame hot and suffocating. I dropped the phone onto the couch, its thud swallowed by the quiet of my living room. The folder from Liam and Sophie still sat on the table, its glossy edges catching the lamplight. I paced, my socks scuffing the worn rug, my mind racing. They hadn't just demanded my money, they'd turned my life into a spectacle, painting me as the villain to their glittering story. I thought of the years I'd spent building a reputation, steady, reliable Rob, the guy who'd fix your car or cover your shift. Now, it was crumbling, one post at a time. The room felt too small, the air too thick. I grabbed my coat, needing to move, to breathe, but a sharp knock at the door stopped me. I froze, my hand on the doorknob. Another knock, insistent. I opened it to find Ellen, my neighbor, her gray hair tucked under a wool cap, a plate of cookies in her hands. Her eyes, sharp behind her glasses, told me she wasn't here for pleasantries. Rob, I saw that nonsense online, she said, stepping inside without waiting for an invite. Her voice was low, crackling with indignation. Those two, parading their lies for the world to see. It's disgusting. I shut the door, the cold air lingering in the hall. You saw it, huh? I muttered, setting the cookies on the counter. The smell of sugar and vanilla clashed with the bitterness in my chest. Everyone's seen it. Ellen's glasses slipped down her nose as she leaned forward. Sophie's got half of Boston eating out of her hand, but I know better. Liam's no saint either. I've heard things, debts, shady deals. They're not as perfect as they pretend. I raised an eyebrow, my pulse quickening. What kind of things? She waved a hand, her rings glinting. Enough to know they're in over their heads. I can't stand by and watch them drag you through the mud, Rob. You've been good to this neighborhood, to Liam, to everyone. Let me help. Her words cut through the fog in my head, a lifeline I hadn't expected. I sank into a chair, the wood creaking under me. I don't even know where to start, Ellen. They've got everyone fooled. Not everyone. She sat across from me, her eyes steady. You're not alone in this. I've got a friend, sharp as a tack, knows how to dig into financials. We'll figure out what they're hiding. I nodded, the weight in my chest shifting, not gone but lighter. Ellen's fire, her refusal to let this slide, sparked something in me. I wasn't just a target anymore. I picked up my phone, the screen still glowing with Sophie's post. My thumb hovered over the app, but instead of scrolling, I opened my messages. A thread with Liam caught my eye, buried months back. I clicked it, my breath catching as I read his words from last year, casual and careless, just sign the papers, Dad. It's for the business, no big deal. The room seemed to tilt. Those papers, had they been the start of this? My fingers tightened around the phone, the plastic creaking. Ellen was still talking, her voice a steady hum, but I barely heard her. That message, those words, they were a crack in Liam's armor, a clue I hadn't seen before. Maybe, just maybe, I'd found a way to fight back. The kitchen smelled of chamomile tea, the steam curling from Ellen's cracked mug as she leaned over my table, her eyes scanning Liam's old message on my phone. "Just sign the papers, Dad," it read, the words as smug now as they'd been a year ago. I pushed the phone toward her, my chair scraping the linoleum. The folder from Liam and Sophie still sat in the living room, but it wasn't the one I needed now. "This was before the wedding," I said, my voice low. "He said it was for his business, some marketing deal." I signed without reading. Stupid, I know. Ellen's lips pursed, her glasses catching the light. Not stupid, Rob. Trusting. But they used that trust like a weapon. She sipped her tea, then set the mug down with a clink. "I've heard rumors about Liam's finances. Fancy dinners, new cars, but no money to back it up. Sophie's no better, posting about her perfect life while dodging questions about her job." I leaned back, my hands clasped tight to keep them still. The kitchen felt smaller, the walls crowding in with memories of Liam's promises. I'd co-signed loans, paid off his debts, always believing he'd grow into the man I raised him to be. But Ellen's words, sharp and certain, cut through that fog. Liam and Sophie weren't untouchable. They had weaknesses, his obsession with status, her fear of losing face. I could use that. "Ellen, you said your friend could dig into their finances?" I asked, my voice steadier now. She nodded, a glint in her eye. "Tom's retired, but he's a bloodhound with numbers. Used to catch corporate fraud for a living. I'll call him tomorrow, get him on this." She tapped the table, her rings clicking. "But you need to think, Rob. What's your endgame? You can't just sit back and take this." I stood restless, and crossed to the sink, staring at the snow-crusted window. My reflection stared back, older, harder. "They thought I'd break," I said, half to myself. "They thought I'd hand over everything because I always have. But I'm done being their safety net." Ellen's chair creaked as she stood, her hand brushing my arm. "That's the Rob I know. The one who rebuilt my porch after that storm, no questions asked. You're tougher than they think." Her words settled in me, solid as stone. I turned, meeting her gaze. "I'll start by figuring out what those papers were. If Liam lied about the business, there's more he's hiding. And Sophie, she's all image. One crack in that facade, and she'll crumble." Ellen grinned, a spark of mischief in her eyes. "Now you're talking. I'll get Tom to look into their accounts. You check your records. Anything, receipts, emails, old contracts. They've underestimated you, Rob, but we'll show them." I nodded, my jaw tight. The idea of fighting back, of turning their own game against them, sent a thrill through me. I crossed to the hall, my steps purposeful, and opened the closet. Inside, buried under coats and boxes, was an old dresser I hadn't touched in years. I yanked open the bottom drawer, the wood screeching, and found it, a dusty folder, stuffed with papers from Liam's business days. My fingers brushed the brittle edges, the smell of mildew sharp in the air. I carried the folder to the kitchen, setting it on the table. Ellen watched, her mug forgotten. I flipped it open, scanning the faded ink, contracts, loan agreements, Liam's scrawled signature next to mine. My eyes caught on a line, a name I didn't recognize, tied to a bank I'd never heard of. My pulse quickened. "Ellen," I said, my voice low, "I think I found something." The private detective's office smelled of stale coffee and ink, the kind of place where secrets went to be unearthed. I sat across from Tom, Ellen's friend, his desk a chaos of papers and sticky notes. The folder I'd found in the dresser lay between us, its contents now in his hands. My fingers tapped the armrest, the vinyl creaking under my grip. Outside, Boston streets buzzed with early February traffic, but in here, it was just me, Tom, and the truth I needed. Tom adjusted his glasses, his eyes scanning a page. "Liam's been sloppy," he said, his voice gravelly. "These business papers. Half of them are tied to shell companies, the other half to loans he never repaid. And Sophie, she's been padding her resume with fake references. Got her that cushy PR job with lies." I leaned forward, my pulse racing. "Can you prove it?" He smirked, flipping the folder shut. "Already did. Found records of Liam's debts, over $200,000, tied to bad investments. Sophie's references. I tracked down the clients. They don't exist." He slid a printout across the desk, numbers and names in stark black ink. "You've got leverage, Rob. Question is, what do you do with it?" I took the printout, my hand steady despite the fire in my chest. Liam and Sophie had built their lives on sand, and I was about to kick it out from under them. "I want to expose them," I said, my voice low. "But not as me." "Not yet." Tom nodded, leaning back. "Smart. Hit them where it hurts, their reputation. I can get you an encrypted email account, untraceable. Send a tip to their circle, let the gossip do the rest." I left his office with the printout tucked in my coat, the city's cold biting my face. Back home, I fired up my old laptop, its fan whirring like a warning. The living room was dark, the folder from Liam and Sophie still on the table, a reminder of their betrayal. I opened a new email, my fingers hovering over the keys. Tom had set up the account, anonymous, clean. I typed, each word sharp and deliberate, "Liam and Sophie aren't who you think. Ask about his debts. Check her references." I signed it, a friend, my lips curling at the irony. The cursor blinked over the send button. I thought of Sophie's smug post, Liam's accusing comment, the way they turned my life into a punching bag. This email wouldn't destroy them, but it would plant a seed, a crack in their perfect facade. My finger pressed down. The screen flashing as the message vanished into the ether. A rush hit me, not joy but something closer to power. For the first time, I was fighting back. I leaned back, the laptop's glow casting shadows on the wall. The house was quiet, the snow outside muffling the world. I imagined Liam and Sophie opening that email, their faces paling as their lies unraveled. They'd underestimated me, thought I'd crumble under their demands. They were wrong. My phone buzzed on the table, shattering the silence. I grabbed it, my heart skipping as Tom's name flashed on the screen. I answered, his voice cutting through the line. "Rob, I dug deeper into those shell companies. Found something bigger, way bigger. You sitting down?" I gripped the phone, my eyes on the laptop, its screen still open to the sent email. His words froze me, a new door opening in a fight I thought I understood. The cafe hummed with life, the clatter of cups and low chatter wrapping around me like a shield. I sat across from Ellen, a notepad between us, its pages scrawled with my hurried notes, names, dates, fragments of what Tom, the detective, had uncovered. The smell of fresh coffee hung in the air, sharp against the February chill seeping through the window. My laptop sat closed, its weight a reminder of the email I'd sent, the first crack in Liam and Sophie's facade. But Tom's call last night had promised something bigger, and I could feel it, the tide turning. Ellen sipped her latte, her eyes scanning my notes. "So, Tom says Liam's tied to a shell company," she asked, her voice low, almost drowned by the espresso machine's hiss. "And Sophie's job is hanging by a thread?" I nodded, tapping the pen against the notepad. "He found transactions, money funneled through fake accounts. Liam signed my name on some of them, years back. I thought they were for his business." My jaw tightened, the memory stinging. He'd come over, all smiles, saying it was a sure thing. I trusted him. Ellen's hand reached across the table, her rings catching the light. You loved him, Rob. That's not a crime. Her voice was soft but firm, like she was anchoring me. What matters is what you do now. I leaned back, the wooden chair creaking. The cafe's warmth couldn't touch the cold knot in my chest. I thought of those papers, the ones I'd signed without reading, Liam's hand on my shoulder, his promises of big things. Each one was a lie, a brick in the wall he'd built to trap me. But now, those same papers were my weapon. Tom's digging deeper, I said. If we can prove fraud, it's not just their reputation, it's legal trouble. Ellen's eyes lit up, a spark of mischief. That's my Rob. Hit them where it hurts. She pulled out her phone, scrolling. I know a lawyer, Sarah. She's sharp, used to handle cases like this. She'll know if those signatures hold up in court. I scribbled Sarah's name, the pen digging into the paper. My plan was taking shape, not just exposing Liam and Sophie, but dismantling their world, piece by piece. Liam cared about status, Sophie about her image. I'd strip both away, using their own lies against them. But I had to be careful, precise. One wrong move, and they'd turn it back on me. The waitress passed, her tray clinking, and I glanced out the window. Boston streets bustled, people hurrying through the snow. I imagined Liam and Sophie in their penthouse, oblivious to the news tightening. The thought sent a thrill through me, not joy but purpose. I looked at Ellen, her face lined with years of her own battles, and felt a warmth I hadn't expected. She wasn't just a neighbor anymore, she was a partner, someone who saw me, not the selfish old man Sophie had painted. Ellen, I said, my voice steady, they made a mistake underestimating me. These documents, they're their downfall. She grinned, raising her cup like a toast. To their mistake, then. And to you showing them what Rob's made of. I smiled, the first real one in weeks, and flipped the notepad to a fresh page. We talked strategy, more evidence, more witnesses, every angle covered. The cafe faded, the noise a distant hum as I focused, my pen flying. Liam and Sophie thought they'd won with their social media stunts. Their demands. They were wrong. My phone buzzed, shattering the moment. I grabbed it, my pulse spiking as Liam's name flashed on the screen. A text, short and sharp, back off, Dad, or you'll regret it. The words hit like a slap, but I didn't flinch. I set the phone down, my eyes meeting Ellen's. She raised an eyebrow, waiting. My heart raced, not with fear but with clarity. He knew I was fighting back. Good. The envelope sat on my kitchen counter, its crisp white paper glaring under the fluorescent light. My name was typed in bold, the law firm's logo embossed in the corner. I didn't need to open it to know what it was, Liam and Sophie's next move. My hand stayed steady as I slid it open, the paper tearing cleanly. The words jumped out, lawsuit, $600,000, breach of verbal agreement. They claimed I'd promised to pay their mortgage, that I'd backed out, leaving them financially devastated. The audacity of it burned, but I didn't crumble. Not this time. I grabbed my keys and drove to Ellen's, the snow crunching under my tires. Her house glowed in the dusk, a beacon of warmth against the gray. I knocked, the door creaking open to reveal her in a flour-dusted apron, the smell of fresh bread wafting out. Rob, you look like you've seen a ghost, she said, ushering me in. Not a ghost, I said, handing her the letter. A lawsuit. She scanned it, her glasses slipping down her nose. 600,000. They're out of their minds. Her voice rose, sharp with outrage, as she tossed the letter onto her kitchen table. The old radio hummed in the background, a soft jazz tune clashing with her fury. They think they can bully you into this? I sank into a chair, the wood warm from the oven's heat. They think I'll fold, like always. My voice was calm, but my mind raced. The lawsuit was a desperate play, proof they felt my email's ripples. I thought of the old letters I'd kept, tucked in a shoebox in my closet, Liam's promises, his signatures, his lies. I've got something they don't expect, I said, leaning forward. Letters from Liam, begging for money, promising to pay me back. They contradict this verbal agreement nonsense. Ellen's eyes widened, a grin spreading. You kept them. Rob, you're a genius. She crossed to the counter, grabbing her phone. Sarah needs to see this. She'll tear their case apart. I nodded, my fingers tapping the table. The lawsuit was a blow, but it was also an opening. Liam and Sophie were cocky, thinking their money and charm would win. But I'd learned their game, every move calculated, every word a trap. I wouldn't just defend myself. I'd turn their attack into their undoing. Ellen paced, her slippers scuffing the floor. Sophie's been posting again, she said, her voice dripping with disdain. All smiles, crowing about justice. She's got no idea what's coming. Let her post, I said, my jaw tight. Every lie they tell makes the fall harder. I stood, restless, and crossed to the window. Her yard was blanketed in snow, the streetlights casting long shadows. I thought of my house, the folder, the cracked photo of Liam. Each piece of my past was now a weapon, and I'd use them all. Ellen hung up with Sarah, her face triumphant. She's free tomorrow. Bring those letters, Rob. This lawsuit's their last mistake. I nodded, the weight of the letter lifting, replaced by a fire I hadn't felt in years. I left her house, the cold biting my face as I climbed into my car. The engine rumbled, and I pulled onto the street, my mind sharp. Then I saw her, Sophie, strolling down the sidewalk, her coat pristine, her smile smug as she glanced at her phone. The sight of her, so sure of her victory, sent a jolt through me. She didn't see me, didn't know I was watching. But she would soon. The lawyer's office towered over downtown Boston, its glass walls reflecting the March sky. I sat across from Sarah, Ellen's friend, her desk a fortress of files and legal pads. My shoebox of letters lay open, Liam's handwriting spilling out, promises, excuses, debts unpaid. Sarah's pen moved fast, her eyes sharp as she read. These are gold, Rob, she said, her voice crisp. They show Liam's pattern of manipulation. No jury will buy their verbal agreement story. I leaned back. The leather chair creaking. So we can fight this? Fight? She smiled, a glint in her eye. We'll bury them. She tapped a letter, dated 3 years back. This one, where he begs for a loan and promises to repay. It's dated before their so-called agreement. Their case is flimsy, built on bluster. My chest loosened, a weight lifting. The office's hum, phones ringing, footsteps outside, faded as I focused. Tom's evidence, the letters, my own testimony, it was enough. Not just to win, but to expose Liam and Sophie for what they were. I thought of their penthouse, their smug smiles, and felt a surge of resolve. This wasn't just about money. It was about my name, my dignity, everything I'd built. That evening, I sat in Ellen's living room, a mug of tea warming my hands. Her old lamp cast a soft glow, the plaid blanket on her couch a comfort against the storm outside. We'd spent hours talking strategy, but now the conversation turned personal. I fought my own battles, you know, she said, her voice quiet. Lost my husband young, raised 2 kids alone. People said I'd break. I didn't. I looked at her, the lines on her face telling stories I hadn't asked about. You're tougher than most, Ellen. I meant it. Her strength, her loyalty, it grounded me, made this fight feel bigger than just me. She laughed, a warm sound. And you're stubborn as a mule, Rob. That's why you'll win. She refilled my mug, the kettle's steam curling between us. You're not just fighting for yourself. It's for everyone who's been used, taken for granted. Her words hit deep, resonating with the part of me that had given too much, too long. I thought of my years supporting Liam, late nights at the firm, scrimping for his tuition, believing it would matter. Now, I was fighting for the man I'd been, the one who deserved better. I pulled out my notepad, reviewing the evidence, Tom's financial records, the letters, a timeline of Liam's lies. Sarah would present it all, clean and devastating. I imagined the courtroom, Liam's face when the truth came out, Sophie's polish cracking. The thought didn't thrill me, it steadied me. Justice wasn't loud. It was methodical, relentless. Ellen stood, stretching. "Get some rest, Rob. Big days ahead." I nodded, gathering my things, the notepad heavy in my hand. I stepped outside, the snow lighter now, the air sharp. I was halfway to my car when my phone buzzed. Liam's name flashed, and I answered, my pulse steady. His voice was smooth, too smooth. "Dad, let's settle this quietly. No need for court, right?" I stood by the lawyer's building, the city's lights blurring around me. His words were a trap, cloaked in calm. I gripped the phone, my voice low. "We'll see about that, son." The courthouse loomed over me, its gray stone facade cold against the April wind that whipped through downtown Boston. I stood on the steps, the folder of evidence heavy in my hands, its edges worn from weeks of handling. My tie felt too tight, the knot a reminder of the fight ahead. Ellen stood beside me, her scarf fluttering, her hand brushing my arm. "You've got this, Rob," she murmured, her voice steady. "They don't stand a chance." I nodded, my eyes fixed on the street. Cars honked, pedestrians hurried past, but everything slowed when I saw them, Liam and Sophie, striding toward me. Liam's coat was unbuttoned, his face flushed, while Sophie's heels clicked with forced confidence, her scarf pulled tight. Their eyes met mine, and for a moment, I saw it, nervousness, a crack in their polished armor. "Dad," Liam started, his voice loud, like he was performing for the crowd. "Let's end this now. No court, no mess. Pay half the mortgage, and we'll call it even." He stepped closer, his breath visible in the chill. "You don't want this dragged out, do you?" Sophie nodded, her lips a thin line. "It's reasonable, Rob. You've always helped us. One last time, and we're done." Her eyes flicked to the folder in my hands, and I caught a flicker of unease. I stood taller, the folder a shield against their words. "You think you can scare me into this?" My voice was low, steady, cutting through the wind. "You chose this fight, Liam. You and Sophie. Now you'll face the truth." Liam's jaw tightened. His hands balling into fists. "You're making a mistake, Dad. This'll ruin you." His voice cracked, betraying the bravado. Sophie touched his arm, her voice sharp. "Let's go, Liam. He's too stubborn to see sense." But her eyes lingered on me, and I saw the doubt, the fear that their plan was unraveling. Ellen stepped forward, her voice like steel. "You heard him. Take your lies inside, or walk away. Either way, Rob's ready." Liam glared, but Sophie pulled him back, her heels scraping the pavement. They turned, whispering to each other, their heads close. I watched them go, my heart pounding, not with fear but with clarity. The letters, Tom's financial records, Sarah's strategy, they were my arsenal, and I was armed to the teeth. I thought of Liam's old promises, scrawled in the letters I'd kept, each one a lie that would now bury him. Sophie's fake references, her brittle image, they'd crumble under scrutiny. "Rob," Ellen said, her hand on my shoulder, "you're not just fighting for you. You're fighting for everyone they've hurt." Her words settled in me, heavy and true. I wasn't just a father betrayed, I was a man reclaiming his worth. I adjusted the folder, its weight grounding me. The courthouse doors loomed ahead, their brass handles glinting in the weak sun. I took a step, then another, Ellen at my side. The crowd parted, their murmurs a distant hum. I reached the doors, my hand on the handle, when I glanced back. Sophie was watching me, her face pale, whispering furiously to Liam. Her eyes locked with mine, and I saw it, panic, raw and unguarded. I turned away, pushing the door open, the folder pulsing in my hands like a heartbeat. The courtroom smelled of polished wood and tension, the air thick with the weight of every word. I sat on the hard bench, my hands clasped, the folder of evidence open on the table before Sarah, my lawyer. Her voice cut through the room, sharp and precise, as she presented the letters. Liam scrawled promises, his pleas for money, each one a nail in their case. Behind me, Ellen's presence was a quiet strength, her hand brushing mine when Sarah laid out Tom's financial records, exposing Liam's debts and Sophie's fake references. The judge, a stern woman with silver hair, leaned forward, her glasses catching the light. "These documents," she said, her voice like gravel, "paint a very different picture than the plaintiff's claims." She held up one of Liam's letters, its edges yellowed. "No evidence supports this alleged verbal agreement." Across the room, Liam shifted, his face red, his tie askew. Sophie sat rigid, her knuckles white around her purse, her eyes darting to the exit. Their lawyer stammered, papers slipping from his hands, but Sarah pressed on, relentless. "My client, Robert, was manipulated," she said, pointing to the financial records. "The plaintiff's debts and fabrications show a pattern of deceit, not entitlement." I kept my eyes on the judge, my heart steady. Each piece of evidence was a brick in the wall I'd built, not to hide behind but to stand on. I thought of the nights I'd spent poring over those letters, the years I'd believed Liam's promises, the betrayal that had carved me into someone new. Ellen's hand squeezed mine, her breath soft. "You're almost there," she whispered. The judge's gavel cracked, silencing the room. "I've heard enough," she said. "The plaintiff's claim is baseless. The lawsuit is dismissed." Her words hit like a wave, washing away the weight of months. The room buzzed, whispers rising, but I sat still, the folder before me a silent victory. Justice wasn't loud, it was this, the quiet truth laid bare. Sarah turned, her smile tight but triumphant. "We did it, Rob." I nodded, my throat tight, not with tears but with something deeper, relief, vindication. Ellen hugged me, her scarf brushing my cheek. "I knew you'd win," she said, her voice warm. "You showed them." I glanced at Liam and Sophie. Liam's head was bowed, his hands gripping the table, while Sophie stared at the floor, her purse forgotten in her lap. Their lawyer muttered something, but they didn't respond. I should have felt joy, but it was heavier, like closing a book I'd never wanted to read. They'd lost, not just the case but the mask they'd worn for years. The judge rose, the room emptying, but I lingered, gathering the folder. Its pages were my shield, my sword, my proof. I stood, Ellen at my side, and headed for the exit. The hallway was crowded, the air cooler, but I stopped short. Liam stood by the door, his silhouette sharp against the light. He turned, his eyes meeting mine, heavy with something I couldn't name. Sophie was beside him, whispering, her face tight. I gripped the folder, my steps slow, knowing this wasn't over yet. The courthouse steps were cold under the fading light, the Boston skyline sharp against the dusk. I stood with Ellen, the folder tucked under my arm, its weight now a comfort, a relic of a battle won. The crowd had thinned, but Liam and Sophie lingered nearby, their figures small against the stone. They approached, hesitant, like children caught in a lie. Liam's hat was crumpled in his hands, Sophie's purse clutched tight, her eyes fixed on the ground. "Dad," Liam started, his voice low, trembling. We were wrong. I'm sorry. We got carried away, thought you'd," he faltered, glancing at Sophie, who nodded, her lips tight. "It was a mistake, Rob," she said, her voice stripped of its usual polish. "We didn't mean for it to go this far. Can we just move past this?" Her eyes flicked up, pleading, but they lacked the fire I'd once feared. I looked at them, my son and his wife, their faces pale, their world cracked open. The courtroom had stripped them bare, Liam's debts, Sophie's lies, their greed laid out for all to see. Friends had turned away, their social media silent, their penthouse a hollow trophy. I should have felt pity, but I didn't. They'd chosen this, every step. You lost more than a lawsuit, I said, my voice steady, cutting through the evening chill. You lost me. You built this mess, and you'll live with it. I stepped closer, the folder firm in my grip. Don't come to me for forgiveness. You don't get to rewrite this story. Liam's shoulders slumped, his hat slipping from his hands. Sophie's eyes dropped, her purse a shield she couldn't hide behind. They turned, their steps uneven, and disappeared into the crowd. I watched them go, the weight of years lifting, not with joy but with finality. I'd given them everything once. Now, I was free. Ellen touched my arm, her smile soft. You were stronger than they ever knew, she said, her scarf catching the breeze. Come on. Let's celebrate. We drove to her house, the city lights blurring past. Her living room welcomed me, its old couch sagging, the smell of coffee rich in the air. We sat, mugs in hand, planning a trip, maybe the coast, maybe farther, a new adventure for two people who'd fought and won. Ellen laughed, her stories of past travels mixing with mine, our voices weaving a future I hadn't dared imagine. You know, she said, setting her mug down, this win, it's not just yours. It's for everyone who's been taken for granted, who's had to fight to be seen. Her eyes sparkled, and I saw her, not just as a friend but as a partner in this new chapter. I nodded, my chest warm. To new beginnings, then. We clinked mugs, the sound bright in the quiet. The folder sat on her table, a closed book, its story done. I thought of the years I'd given Liam, the sacrifices that had shaped me, and now this, justice, not just for me but for the man I'd become. Later, I stepped onto Ellen's porch, the night crisp, the sky a canvas of stars. I sat on the steps, my coat loose, and looked up. Each star was a possibility, a road I hadn't walked yet. For the first time in years, I felt it, peace, sharp and clear, like the air in my lungs. The future was mine, and it was bright. If you liked this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.